everybody, and welcome to another episode of Death By, where contestants will earn reps for their arguments for a chance to stand on top of the podium pedestal. I am your host, Lauren Kalil. Whoever I decide has the best argument through the final round will earn 30 seconds to talk about a topic of their choosing. On today's episode, we have affiliate owner and CrossFit analyst Chase Ingraham with Get With The Programming, affiliate owner of CrossFit Wonderland and coach of the 2023 Fittest Man on Earth, Jeffrey Adler, Carolyn Lambray, and CrossFit Overtake Team Density, Marco Coppola. He is the team captain, and he is here for the first time. Welcome to the show, everybody. Getting ready for the CrossFit Games. Marco, first, how has training been?
Brutal, like it's supposed to be.
That's perfect. I think, have you been doing CrossFit more than or longer than anybody on the call right now?
Chase has been doing it forever. So I remember.
Come on, I'm
Chase's
old.
eyebrow went up.
Yeah, I remember my first
It's been
time
close,
going
though.
to, regionals in 2000, and the first year was what, 11 or 10?
So
11. 11.
Was
In
that
combo.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a melting pot. Literally, it was over 100 degrees, and everybody's hands got multiple, like, first, second, third degree burns from the bars and stuff. So, like, way back,
Good
like,
old days.
apocalyptic times.
Everyone's like, oh, the heat and tech's like, y'all have no idea.
No.
Y'all have no idea. Inside events, what are those?
Yeah, that'd be so sweet.
Do I see that you still have your wrist straps on? Are you like going to
Yeah,
train in between people answering?
I just got done doing some squats, and then I'm gonna do some more after this. I rode this morning and did some other stuff. So it's a lot right now. I got 3 kids, and my wife's out of town. Luckily, I'm getting a lot of help, so it's a full blown duty right now.
Okay, well then let's get to the show so you can get back to training. Carolyn can continue training Jeff, and Chase can be talking about everything and probably training himself. Here we go, y'all. Let's play Death By. Topic number 1. Cuts are back at the CrossFit Games, and a big discussion around cuts is what will the programming look like to determine who makes it through the cuts. We know that the run and swim will happen prior to cuts, and the event Chad will be the last event before cuts. But when it comes to a strength test, do you guys think that that should happen before or after cuts? Chase, we will let you start. Topic 1.
I think the perfect example of why a strength test should happen before cuts was 2019. Clear as day, you cut to the final 10, you had no max lift, nothing absolutely heavy. The heaviest thing you had in 2019 before the cut was a 185 and 135 pound snatch. That's not going to cut it. What we have seen the last 3 years, however, is more of a complete test before the cuts. And that's really where I want us to focus our attention. Is a strength test does not mean a 1 rep max test. It just means that strength was tested in some capacity within the event. In 2021, before the major cut, you had the clean and run 200 meters ladder event, which was 2 of them. That was plenty of a strength test before the cut. In 2022, you had the sandbag clean, as well as the shuttle run shoulder overhead. That was plenty of a strength test prior to the cut. And then last year, we had alpaca, which when you looked at the weight of the kettlebells, that's a heavy test. When you look at the difficulty of the legless rope climbs from a seated position for 6, that is a strength test in and of itself. And then let's not mention the sled that slammed everybody in the tracks. There's a way to test strength before the cut. It should be tested appropriately before there are cuts. As long as there is a complete test of fitness prior to the cut, then it's okay to have them in the competition.
Okay, Chase starting strong with his spreadsheet and notes. 3 points for Chase. Carolyn, she wants to take him down today. You're up next.
I'm going to agree with Chase. I think it depends how it's tested. I don't think that it needs to be a pure strength test. And, well, for example, I'd rather see a CrossFit total than like just a 1 RM back squat or run a 1 RM clean and jerk. I'd much prefer to see something that involves some strength endurance, like a shuttle to overhead, like we've seen. And also gymnastic strength, like Chase mentioned, the legless rope climb, some kettlebells. Like you can test strength in different ways and different time domains. I think it has an appropriate place before the cuts. I think that it needs to be programmed properly, and that's where I think it can interfere with how things get scored later on if you're just doing like too much of a pure IS test.
2 points for Carolyn. Marco, what are your thoughts here?
I agree with the sentiments of everybody, but the the completion of the test, it depends on what is programmed prior and comes afterwards, all involved. If you go on one too far on one extreme side of the spectrum and you haven't had enough strength elements heavy enough, then yeah, you're going to have skewed results. And just like I mean, I kind of make the same argument like Chase was talking about 2019, where it was a storm because there was a workout, then a cut, then a workout, then a cut. Well, they kind of put themselves in that predicament because they invited so many people there and all the national champions, and they had to cut the field down to just eliminate. And I think the tests were pretty valid. And if you got cut, you probably had a little bit of a hole in your game or really mis-executed. But if you're going to have a whole test, then yeah, you have to test things. I'm just more like it seems like we get kind of caught in the same thing over and over again with a swim and a run instead of like why isn't there a barbell or anything mixed in with that swim? Why doesn't it start with 20 deadlifts at 405 and 315 before you get in the water? Like we always run, we bike, we do other stuff. It's like a triathlon, whatever you want to call it, but there's no mixture there. Like 2 years ago when I was competing at in 22 on the teams, we did the workout with the ski erg and the swim, and everybody complained about it like it was a ski erg workout. Well, it was a swim and a ski erg workout. You just had to be good at ski erging also. Yeah, not every swim workout has to be a swim workout, just like every pull-up workout doesn't have to be dominant pull-ups. You can mix things up. It's kind of redundant just to keep swimming and running, and Khrennikov's not going to win this year because he's not there, but you kind of know who's going to do well and who's not, and like that's not really like exciting.
Ooh, interesting take. I want to branch off of that. 2 points for Marco. How would it change the overall results and even the output from the athletes if there was a heavy barbell with the swim and the run?
Not to dig a knife into Chase's side, but ask him.
It's okay.
Chase, I'm serious. I grew up in a sport watching Chase, and Chase always struggled with deadlifts, but that changes the workout completely. Just that movement. If it's a clean and jerk or a snatch, it's a little harder because I'm saying something simple to go with a swim. You're not going to clean and jerk and snatch and then like all that stuff. You don't have to. I think it was because it significantly changes. So it changes the effect. It changes the start of the weekend. Think about Pat. Like personally, I've only met Pat once. Don't know him super well at all, but love cheering for the guy, bigger dude. But he starts in a hole every single time because the same workout is almost every single time he starts the games in a hole because it's a big endurance event. When he has good endurance, it's just not as good as some other people because he weighs 220 something pounds. And that's a hard thing to move versus doing all this other stuff. It just kind of seems like, let's think about Pat's perspective and then think about Khrennikov's perspective. They're completely different to start the weekend. And you got to be resilient no matter what the tests are. And that's what we sign up for. So,
Carolyn, is this something that when you program for Jeff, do you add lifting as he's training in a swim or a swim run scenario to potentially prepare for something like that?
Yes and no. So I would say the majority of the time, like say for something as specific as a swim, like we'll mostly swim. But then as we get closer to the games, we will mix things in. The pool that we go to is a little bit harder just in terms of like the type of equipment that we can bring, like what we're allowed to do and not do. But it's definitely something that, I keep in mind to make sure that we are hitting different stimuluses because you don't know, like clearly run, swim, bike, swim, run, whatever, like is most likely going to come up. But there was that one year, I think it was 2013, that they were doing like bar muscle ups next to the pool when it was in Carson. So like you never know what can come back. The 2020 games, they had the assault and the
GHD and the ball slam.
With the smaller, small field, only 5 people.
That was fun to watch.
So that can come back. It's just like we don't know how it's going to be programmed. So you definitely need to be ready for everything. But I would say on top of just how things are programmed, whether we do have a strength test or not, really what makes the whole difference is the scoring system. Because as you get cut, the scoring system changes. So if we were to take, let's say, the scoring system for the last 20 and apply that for all the events, like obviously that means the bottom 20 is not getting any points or whatever, but does that change? Right? Because like as we move along, each event weighs more because you can create more separation because the scoring system changes. So I think it's not just the cuts and what we program and when it's programmed. We need to look at how the points are attributed over the whole weekend, over all of the tests, and see if that's appropriate in terms of having cuts or not.
And there's your argument for performance-based scoring systems.
Like
Yeah,
Z
reward.
scoring.
Yeah,
Like
reward people for winning.
Or even this will take time to develop something like that, but not something unlike, I mean, this is totally off the topic of question, which you probably save for another week. But if you see in the heptathlon or decathlon, you actually get points as you get closer to what a perfect or elite score would be. So it's not even relative to the field that you're competing against. You're competing against what the highest bar could be set for a particular event. Now, that's a lot harder to do in CrossFit. So when you look at something like cuts, and like Caroline perfectly laid out, is that when you have cuts and the scoring system changes, well, if you have 40 people, the scoring system might be dropping by 4s, then by 3s, then by 2s. And by the time you get to the last day when there's 20 and it's just 5 across the board, you're going to get more bang for your buck down the road, or you won't lose as much in lesser fields. So it does change the way the landscape goes when you are competing and you're making cuts. And that has been, I would say, is the one Achilles heel to the question of, is cuts good or bad? And it's the scoring system that changes throughout the weekend where, yes, I mean, we saw that in 2019 for sure when the last day was only 10 and it was 10-point drops between place finishes. And you're with the most 10 elite people that are in the field per the programming that is determined. So it is a question that should be asked and expanded on. And I would say see what the possibilities could be with something like a performance-based scoring system along with cuts, which could be the most ideal situation for the games.
So do we need to reevaluate the scoring system altogether? Because I do think that the fittest man and woman are crowned each year, but just looking at the leaderboard and everybody else, that variable or changing that could completely change the variables.
Well, the cuts change that regardless of what the scoring system is, right? But when we had the 2014 to 2018, when they kept everybody, we had the fittest 40. We had them ranked 1 through 40 because they all took the same test throughout the weekend. When you do make cuts, that does change the way that is. However, Dave has said this, Adrian Bosman has said this, is that they are finding the fittest person on earth and they will program and design the event to find that singular person. They are not as concerned as what 2 through 10 looks like ranked on a fitness level, let alone 11 through 40. It's not a massive priority. It's a sport. It's a spectacle. At the end of the day, this is entertainment. And if this is the path they feel like is best to provide that while finding the fittest man, woman, and team on the planet, then that's what they decide to do.
I think they still, like 2019 again, you watched that, I think it was the final, the 2 workouts back-to-back-ish. They had the total rings and the bike, and then they had the burpees to a target and the snatches. By then, the field had been cut, and that was probably the biggest debate in that whole year of when the cuts happened and why. But you had a bunch of bigger athletes already eliminated that would have crushed those workouts, being that it was a weight, burpee to a height, the same set height for everybody touching that ring, and a bike. But most of the bigger athletes were already cut by then. I think that's when the field went down to 10.
Yeah, they cut after the sprint.
Yeah,
at 10,
and that's when Pat got
they
cut
had
and
the
some other
lift
guys.
Later that night.
It was. I mean, it was just kind of looking back and being like, man, I wish so and so was doing this. I wish so and so was doing this. And it's just unfortunate because I think you're right, Lauren. Like everybody says that they crown the fittest every single year for the most part. They just don't care about 5 through 10 and what order they come or who it is. That doesn't matter. They just want to have the fittest person standing on top, and the rest of it just fall where they may. And I think it matters more to the athletes than it does to the programming, to be honest, people that are calling the shots.
Okay, we have so many follow-up questions, but I'm gonna put a pin in that and we're gonna save them for another episode so that we can get to what we do have programmed for today. So we will move on to topic number 2. We know that event 1 is going to be the run swim event, and it will be in open water, not in a pool. With the history of health issues for athletes in open water swims, is this type of test necessary at the CrossFit Games? Carolyn, we will start round 2 with you.
I think a swimming event is somewhat necessary. I think it does change what we regularly do in the gym, and it adds another component. Ideally, eventually we see rowing in the water. We spend so much time in a concept too. As for open water specific, it would, in my opinion, only matter if we know that we can have a proper health test the day of. Like if you can guarantee me, especially as event 1, because especially now, like before it was Wednesday, they would have a swim and other events, Thursday rest, and then 3 more days. So ideally, if you catch something by the end of like Saturday, Sunday, you might be getting better. Now they're doing 4 days back to back, and the first event is an open water swim. If people get sick, they're pretty much screwed for the rest of the weekend. And I don't think that's fair for the athletes when it's something that is out of your control. So unless we can have like better parameters to make sure that we're taking care of the health of the athletes, I don't mind if there's an open swim, but then do it on Sunday. Like, again, if we're talking about the cuts and do we need to have the strength events before all the cuts? Well, do we need to have the open water test on the first day, or can we keep it for Sunday?
3 points for Carolyn. Before I go to you, Marco, just quick question for you and Chase as people that live in Texas. I lived for a while in Wisconsin, so I knew that blue-green algae was like a major factor in their lakes. Is that similar for Texas because of the heat and build of bacteria? Do either of you know?
I think the people in Texas are just a little bit tougher. They don't care. They just get in the water to cool down because it's so hot. No, I'm kidding.
They don't care.
I think that people are aware, and every lake is different. I actually was just in Marine Creek Lake on Saturday, the lake the game swims at, and I'll be there a few more times. So I can kind of give you some tidbits there. It was actually a very nice lake for Texas, especially I grew up on the lake in Lake Conroe in my area, and it was not as nice. We swam in it all the time, but every time you went out on it, just like you're kind of worried about Caroline, a lot of people get sick just from getting water and drinking it in when they're playing on their jet skis and stuff and skiing and wakeboarding or whatever. So yeah, there's legitimacy to that for sure. My ear hurt afterwards after swimming on Saturday for a day and a half, and it hurt to swallow a little bit. So I got some water in my ear, but I'm not a great swimmer. But I can tell you this, the lake was very nice compared to most lakes I've been in. And the temperature wasn't that bad. And I talked to a guy at the lake that lives on the lake, and the guy was super nice, gave us a whole bunch of information. And he said it doesn't get too bad there. In comparison to other lakes, like Wisconsin and some others, I would have less hesitation than I had with some other conditions we've been in. Because I've swam in the ocean and stuff like that in Carson, and it was different every time. But I think that this lake is actually a pretty good setup. I was pleasantly surprised, to put it that way. I was more concerned and like, uh-oh, here we go again. No, I have less hesitation now after being in that water.
Chase, any insight to what you know about the lakes?
I mean, so I grew up swimming competitively in high school through Texas as well as college, and we did open water races in lakes all the time, and not once did I ever get sick from any swim I ever did. Now, we took some precautions as far as ears are concerned that Marco's talking about, and we'd pour some solutions when the race was over just to do our due diligence, but the only thing I'm usually worried about in lakes is tree roots and water moccasins. That's usually my biggest concern when it comes to Texas lakes.
It's real. It's real. There are snakes in the water. I don't think you have to be worried about them, though.
Oh, man. A new fear has been unlocked. I'm glad I am not an athlete. Okay, let's go to Marco then to answer the actual question. Now that we know a little history about the lakes in Texas for the athletes, get the solution Chase is talking about. Marco, what do you think? Should open water swims, or are open water swims necessary at the games?
They're necessary as long as Dave is programming and he loves it. We're going to do whatever he says. And there's no way to fight back against it really much. And you can tell that he's really laying into it, even in his athlete interviews. So as long as he even said, I don't remember the interview, I might have been with Kyra. He said that basically everybody wanted the pool. Everybody likes the pool in 22 for the most part. It's more entertaining. You can see it's a race. You kind of see what's going on. I think it allows, and even in 2020, it allows for some easier way to see how the race is going and going down. Open water swimming, I don't know if that's necessary. I think swimming is probably necessary if you're going to have somewhere close to 15 tests. So I have no problem with it. I'd like to see more variance, though, like we talked about earlier, throwing some other elements in, machines or simple movements, things that you can drop like a D-ball or sandbag, lighter things. Doesn't have to be super heavy. I just think that there's need to be a little bit more variance than we're just going to jog around and then get in some water and flop around and hope everybody makes it back.
Flop around.
Well, some of them are going to flop, not many.
Chase, what are your thoughts here?
As far as open water is concerned, relative to the pool, I mean, we've been swimming every year since the CrossFit Games since 2011. I think a quarter of those have been in the ocean. We've had a couple lake swims and some pool swims. So there's been a decent balance of those three. The pool is nice, but open water swimming is a unique test, not unlike running on a track versus doing something cross country on the trails. I don't think there's actually any history of really like sickness from open water swimming at the CrossFit Games other than what we saw in 2021. And they did their best due diligence to see if the water was fine. It just happens. And if we're going to go down that road, is like, well, then we should never snatch, sprint, or do box jumps again because people hurt their elbows, Achilles, and pull their hamstrings. It's just a part of sport. Now, sickness is sickness. It can come from anywhere, but I don't think there's anything specific to open water swimming that just gets everybody sick. Some things happen. Some things are unfortunate, but that's the nature of sport and as we see it. The one thing I do like, and this is totally off topic, I've made my point there, is that, hey, look, put swimming in the CrossFit Games. It's a skill-based monostructural movement more than any other monostructural movement you can possibly have in the sport of CrossFit. It should be in there. It's great when it is. I do like Marco's, even though it would be to my detriment, of putting something heavy coupled with something like a swim. And to his point is like, yes, deadlifts are terrible. If it was 20 at 405, one of them comes off the ground, and that's probably about it. And what would happen is I would go from being a clear winner of that event to getting dead last. So that's what the difference could possibly be.
Yeah, and just to balance the test, right? Like,
No, it's
you can,
good. I like it.
you could take stuff somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? That every event has to have a barbell and be heavy, but like
Best swim event ever program was the beach in 2014 with 3 swims at 3 different distances with kettlebell thrusters and burpees in the sand. It was a WMG triplet. It was absolutely beautiful.
and it was more entertaining.
Yes, but it was still open water.
Yeah.
3 points for Chase. That was before my time, but to me, the most entertaining year was when they were in the pool and it was the intervals and they had the bike and the slam balls, especially whether it was from home watching the live stream or there as a viewer. It just was something that you could watch the races in real time. Does being in a pool make it more exciting for the viewer, or are there ways to make an open water swim more entertaining? And not to say that watchability is the only thing that we're testing here. We're trying to find the fittest. So I acknowledge that.
It's easier to follow. Obviously, 2020 was the easiest to follow. It was 5 people in a 6-lane pool. That was pretty straightforward. If you, I mean, think about 2022 with the swim event that had basically all the athletes going at the same time. Not as watchable because we didn't really know where they were. The swim really wasn't the important part. It was how many ski cows they were getting on the ski erg. But I think there is a way to do that, to make both. But I also think there's a way to make it entertaining on an open water side. And now we start getting in the fact of like, okay, what's the budget to cover? Can we get drones to cover the swim? Do we know who people are? Usually in a big mass start, it's just a bunch of heads. And we know that Brent Fikowski and Yona Kosugi at front and Pat Vellner might be at the end, right? That's about all we know during the big league swim. All right, Pat. I love you. Yeah, I think there are ways to make everything entertaining. But for, say, a casual fan, getting to a pool where people can come and watch and sit in the stands in an indoor facility and watch people go back and forth is probably an easier thing to view than it is, say, an open water swim. If they're around the lake, they're not going to get the best viewing experience.
Carolyn, I want to go back to your thought about them actually rowing in the water.
Oh, yeah.
Right, that you said rowing, right?
Yeah.
How realistic would that be? And I know that we throw things at these athletes all the time. Like the first year that they were on bikes, some people, I was surprised they couldn't even bike, like a real one, not an Echo or assault bike. But how realistic would something like that be?
I mean, why not? We spend so much time biking on a Concept 2. We put them on a bike. We spend so much time doing the Concept 2 rower. Why not put them in the boat? They did it in, I think it was a sanctional in London. The strength and depth. And they put another person in the boat to make sure that people weren't tipping over. I think it would definitely require some preparation in terms of like, can either tell me like 2 months in advance or tell me a year in advance so that people can put time to develop these skills, or have everybody at the games, like everybody on Tuesday, everybody has like 2 hours to get used to this and have a crash course and like learn the skill, like so people aren't falling in the water because they, they're a little bit tippy if you become too aggressive. But I think it would, like, they put them in kayaks. Like, why not put them in an actual rowboat? We do a lot of Olympic sports. To me, it just makes sense to eventually put people in that, especially for the teams. And then you can have the individuals in the teams. They have votes of 4 that you can either have 1 or 2. I think it would be entertaining to see that and to have that skill actually tested in the water. Now, as for, I want to come back to the sickness in the water. We cut the ropes because Scott Panchik hurt his knee, right? Like, we do modify things because we see if, box jumps, people are stepping down now. We're letting them drop from 15 feet in the air from a rope climb, but we're making them step down from a box jumps. I don't get it. But we are modifying certain movements when we see that people are getting injured or we think the chance is too high. There is a risk. And I don't think anything has been documented. It's all about what you hear in podcasts and later on behind the scenes of like, oh, I was sick and I was sick too. And so was at IV. And like, I'm there. I know who was sick. Like, it's not just like one athlete. No, you can have many athletes. And then you talk to people in August and September. It's like, yeah, I was sick because of the leg. And it's like, I don't think that is fair to the athlete when, like, you're in control of your body. You decide if you're dropping from that 15-foot rope. That's on them. But they don't have a choice whether they go into a lake or a pool. That's on CrossFit. And I think there needs to be more due diligence in terms of the repercussion that it can have. Because if we want people to come and watch the sport and crown the fittest, then I want everybody to have a fair chance. And I don't think people are sick.
Yeah, it's just the rope and the water. I think CrossFit actually should take more for the rope situation. I don't think the ropes is really the problem as much for me. It's that the workout required you to drop and go. You could not come down and then take that extra second or two. You're going to lose every single time. It basically made you do it. And yeah, I don't understand why they just didn't chop the ropes to here anyways. Like, they've done it before with the shorty ropes, and then there's no chance of hitting the rope, and you have to start the climb legless, and you could still use your legs on the way down if you want a little bit. Just seems like there's no accountability. There's no like rationale or explanation of what they're doing. They just kind of say, do it. And that's it.
Chase, any rebuttals here?
I got no. That's total line enough.
All right, then we will move on to topic number 3. I'm really excited about this question. This was what I will call a viewer submission from Marco. He's watched the show. He's talked about the show. And this is something that he wanted to get on here and debate. And if the CrossFit Games were to program a fight matchup, I think that's what he would call it as one of the events, who would you like to see face off to go head-to-head for the women, head-to-head for the men, and who would you have winning? Marco, you get to kick us off here on the final round.
So
I don't know how long you've been thinking about this, but let's do it.
Always thinking about people trying to get physical, because there's just not enough of it in some of this stuff that we do. We test everything else, but we don't test anything where we're really in, let's call it, extremely close quarters. I think that also have to define what a fight would be like. Is it a,
I'm going to let you define it. This is your question.
It could be a grappling match. It could be like short gloves, boxing gloves, everything goes. Honestly, if it's every bit of fighting that it is, if it's a grappling match all the way up to a street fight, the person I'm picking probably changes a little bit, but not much, and who I want to see. And it's
okay, set the standard right now. How are we playing? Street fight, Chase?
Street fight.
All right, street fight. Great. That's the best. All right, that's what real life is. When it comes down to it, everybody likes to chirp, but nobody wants to walk it. So it's easy for me. It's right at the top. I would love to see Caroline's Jeff Adler and Roman, after rubbing and racing the whole time and all that chirping back and forth. Let's just go out back and let this get settled. And I promise you, there won't be any more talking afterwards. You can shake your hands and move on, hug it out. And then, who's going to win? I'm going to put my money on the Russian in that case. No offense to the Canadians, but that's just the way it goes.
It's too polite.
And then, that is pretty polite. But and on the women's side, of course, like, you got to see who wants to really, like, who's got the most fight in them. And I think that we've already seen it's Laura and Tia. And I honestly don't know who would win. I'd love to find out. So I just want to be there to be entertained. But a street fight gets pretty nasty. I don't know if a street fight would be that much fun to watch, to be honest. So we might need some rules.
This is so off the rails, and this is what I love. Marco, you know what? You came up with the question. I like your answer. You're going to get 5 points for that.
Hey,
You're back in the running here.
what's up, Chase?
Hey, I still going second, bro.
Yeah. Chase, you're up. You're up. Who's facing off and who's winning for the men and women?
So I was waiting for the ground rules because I was like, all right, I'm going to have like a real fight, a bunch of fighters on my hands for the dudes, and then like what the fight really everybody wants to see for the chicks. But so I'm going to put my Dana White hat on, and I'll start with the dudes. If it's a street fight, I'm taking out one of them. So I originally had Justin Medeiros in there with his wrestling background from high school, but I'm going to replace him with someone that I would consider the Australian backlands of just craziness, and is like Ricky Garrard has to be in the center stage when it comes to a street fight. But then I am a proud American, and there's no one more proud of our military. Jack Rosema will be my victor for the United States of America. He's a captain in the Army, so from one captain to the other. And I'm not a real captain, but you get what I'm saying. And he's in JAG, right? The dude wrestled for Ohio State. He walked on to the wrestling team at Ohio State, which is one of the most storied wrestling programs in the country. That is going to be one hell of a fight, and I'm giving it to my captain in the Army, Mr. Jack Rosema. We'll take the win over Ricky Garrard, not without some battle scars. Ricky's going to get his, but Jack's going to get the win. And we're going pay-per-view, right? Pay-per-view, both views. We want a Dallas Cowboys-like New England Patriots, a bunch of just hatred and love in both directions. There's two people. There's only two women to choose when it comes to a pay-per-view fight if you want the most eyeballs and the most entertainment. It's Dani Speegle is number one, and the second one is Danielle Brandon. Dani Speegle versus Danielle Brandon in an ultimate street fight. It's over. It's absolutely like you're going to get the most views. It's going to be the most exciting entertainment you'll ever have. I'm taking Danielle Brandon. She's got a little bit of trailer park in her, and that's going to be needed in a street fight. So Danielle Brandon, you get my vote for that win over Dani Speegle. With all due respect.
Tia would chew them up, spit them out. I mean,
here's the thing. Tia would fight people. I believe Danielle Brandon wants to fight people. And there's a big difference, right? When you see dudes fight, most of the time, they don't want to keep fighting. Girls are absolute savages in fights, to the point, like you were saying, is like it's almost uncomfortable where we just want to stop the fight because it's getting bad, right?
Have you seen a real in-person girl fight?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have not. You ever see two wild tigers fight each other in the zoo? It's about the same thing.
Yeah, nobody's going to pay to watch James Sprague and Cole Sager tickle each other and hug it out. Nobody would
have like a compliment off. We don't need that.
Yeah.
Right? Who has the better smile? Who can give each other the best compliment? I don't want to see that. I want to see U.S. Army and Australian rules football. And I just want to see two of the most polarizing females in the sport right now duke it out in the streets.
Sean, I need backup. I don't even know how to give points for this. I need you to come into the show and help a sister out.
We got to get Caroline's answer because I can't wait to hear.
Yeah, I want to hear Caroline's answer first.
Okay, so we're gonna hold on.
Points. Solid answer from Chase. I mean, that's at least a 4. I mean, you gave Marco 5. Like I feel like that's a 4-pointer. It's pretty solid. I mean, I did not expect a good pay-per-view matchup between Danielle and Dani Speegle, and the fact that I think he hit the nail on the head. Tia Toomey would fight people. Danielle Brandon wants to fight people. That's a good quote.
Okay, give him 4 points. I want to hear what Caroline says.
I don't want to see people fight. I didn't have an answer at first, but like my mind's been turning. So because I don't want anything physical, I'm gonna have a rap battle. And it's gonna be East versus West. So I'm gonna have Pat. Well, he moved to the East, but we're still gonna consider him West. I want Pat and Brent to face off Dallin and Jay and Hopper. And like have a rap battle.
So you want your boys to lose? That's what you want? It's not even going to be close. You got white bread versus cornbread. That's what that is. It's not East Coast, West Coast. It's white bread versus cornbread.
But I feel like that would be entertaining. And on the women's side, I have no idea. Yeah.
Who would you want to fight, Caroline? How about that?
Yeah.
You're the first half. I'm not going to put you in that position.
I'd be a scrappy fighter. I'm a yeller. I'll be, you just
I like it because you know what? I appreciate the kindness, so I'll still give you 3 points, but it just won't be enough to win. Oh gosh, dang it. Chase wins again, guys.
Son of a gun.
I did my best.
Marco, you brought the question. I tried to give you some points for that, but
I think that me and Chase
Pay-per-view.
should fight for it then.
okay, Carolyn, who do you think would win a fight? Marco or Chase?
Listen, if he gets his bear paws on me, it's going to be hard to get out of. I'm just like, I'm going to have to like Floyd Mayweather this for like 6 or 7 rounds to wear him down before I can even get close to him.
Chase, stop it. Stop it.
Okay, so if we're speaking realistically, though, obviously I don't think that the CrossFit Games is going to program a physical fight.
All right,
but
you
what
want to know what the event is? I'll tell you what it is before you
Okay.
even ask the question. Here's the event. I said this on a show 2 years ago, is there needs to be the Marine-style joust in the circle and just let them beat each other with pugil sticks. Or American Gladiators, that shit.
Yep.
Put them on the pedestals, give them some pugil sticks in their hands, and let's see it.
Straight
What's a
king of the
pugil
mat.
stick?
Like
What's that?
you're
A
talking about
pugil
the thing
stick,
that,
what is that?
rotates.
It's a shaft with the 2 soft ends on it.
Oh, yeah, and you try to knock the person off,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Or King of the Ring, as Marco's talking about, where it's on
King of the mat. You put a circle on a wrestling mat and you go outside of it, you're out. Just like sumo wrestling, simple.
Broken
It wouldn't-
skull
it-
style.
It wouldn't last that long. It would go pretty quickly. Each match, you put a cap on it. You can have other variables in there. Grappling's the first, I believe, Greco-Roman wrestling, the first real Olympic sport. I mean, we don't touch it. We don't do anything physical, and everybody gets to play and stuff. So it'd be nice to have a little contact other than elbow rubs and kicking each other in the water.
Carolyn, how would you program this to help Jeff train if that were the case?
probably do it every other MMA fighter and just like go around and try to learn everything and then let him loose. Yeah.
Oh.
I think we lost Lauren.
Nope. Oh yeah.
It's like, man, she really likes that answer.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, I'll take over.
Ooh.
Tag it in.
Yeah, you want some now.
Yeah.
I can see the excitement.
Yeah. Okay, well, Chase is our winner. So
Yes.
you got 30 seconds
30 seconds.
to enlighten the people on a topic of your choosing
Ooh.
for Chase Ingraham.
All right. Well, I'm glad you're here for this because I was going to make Lauren put you on screen for my 30 seconds.
Okay.
And I wanted to start the show end the show as we started it. And Sean, I want to let you know is that you have been a mentor of mine since 2012. You've taught me everything I know when it comes to broadcasts. You were there for me from the beginning, and you're still there for me through this entire thing. I love you to death. I'm going to miss you in the booth this year, but I promise to do you proud in Fort Worth in August.
I appreciate that. I will. I can't wait to see you call the games in your home state. You're going to crush it, and I will continue to say this. I said it before. I'll say it again. People are going to find out just how good you are over those 4 days. So
No pressure.
it, and not the last time we're going to work together. Like that's not done.
Yeah.
Can't wait to work with you again. And
Yes,
you deserve it, man. Great
Thank
job. You've earned it. I know you don't like the deserve word. You earned
I
it.
don't. Thank you.
All right. Well, that's it for this edition of Death By. Marco, thanks a lot. Carolyn, thank you for joining us. And Chase, thank you as well. Got something in my eye. And we will see you guys next time.